Okay, this is now the tarot lesson number 9, and I have 5 points to make. First, I imagine everybody knows the Beatles, and they produced a lot of songs, along with George Martin, of course, but there's an awful lot of Beatles songs out there. However, if you only know one of the songs, it's going to be very difficult to have a decent conversation about the Beatles. And in the same way, let's say you take an album like Dark Side of the Moon, and I mentioned that for Julie in Manchester. But anyway, let's say you're familiar with the whole album, but you're talking to somebody and they've only heard like Us and Them, one song. It's going to be difficult to have a conversation about that particular album. And I think it's true in the same way for tarot cards, because if you know, let's say, 2 meanings for a particular card, you can't have that good a conversation with somebody with a questioner about the meaning of the card, or about the story, or about the promise that the card makes or gives. So when I mentioned, I can't last time or the time before, about picking a card like there's the 8 of Batons. So if we look at the 8 of Batons and we've got our notebook and one word, maybe we've got movement or flying or something like that, and we write it down and then we leave it for a couple of days, and then we go back and look at that word in that card and see if we can develop the idea of flying or movement through the air in connection with that particular card. And it would then mean that if the card comes up, or when the card comes up in a reading, we've got a lot we can talk about in using the card to answer the question. Because if you remember before, I got the Knight of Swords and I wrote down, or I thought, it's windy, and that's what I wrote down on my piece of paper. So what do we do with that? Maybe we'll look at it a couple of days later and we can't think of anything else. But I once came across the idea that the wind shows the force or the influence of the invisible on the visible. Because you can't see the wind directly, but you can see the effect that the wind is having if you look at branches going up and down in the wind. So maybe there's something about the Knight of Swords where you're going to see what's happening, but you can't see the originator of the action. You can see the result of the action, but you can't immediately identify, and maybe you can never see the thing or the person or the circumstance that caused the thing to happen. So maybe you're talking, the Knight of Swords comes up and you're talking with the questioner and they say something about this thing happened and I have no idea where it came from. Maybe you then relate what they just said. So you begin to talk about the wind and invisible influences and so on. But you're adding to the questioner's understanding of what's going on. And maybe another example is the Lovers here. I can't turn that card. There's the Lovers. And remember, we talked about Eve, okay? And then I thought, a couple of days after that, I thought Christmas Eve. I know it's not Eve, a person, but maybe I wrote that on a piece of paper as well. So maybe what you do is you realize that the Lovers, some part of the Lovers, maybe in some way is about having a better tomorrow. Of course, Christmas Eve, right? Tomorrow's Christmas Day, and Christmas Day is supposed to be great. I don't know if it ever is for anybody, but we've got the idea that Christmas is a good day because you get presents and people come together and families get together, and it lasts for about 10 minutes and then everybody drinks too much and they start insulting each other. However, we've got the idea that Christmas Day for children, let's say, is a good day and it's exciting. So maybe if the Lovers comes up and your questioner is talking about how things are going wrong, maybe you remind them, this is Eve, Christmas Eve. Tomorrow can be a better day. So you're saying what you're saying based on what's going on in the picture, what's going on in the card. You're not going to say the same thing every time to every questioner, but at least you've got an awful lot that you might say. In the same way that if you know all the tracks well on Dark Side of the Moon, you can pick any track or any line of music or any line of lyrics, and you can talk about it meaningfully against the background of the whole album. Or maybe you bring in the Roger Waters or David Gilmour's guitar playing or whatever. Although there's an interesting bit about Us and Them, how Richard Wright, who plays keyboards, talked about how he made up, he developed the music based on a jazz chord that he heard Miles Davis play years before, and he worked it out. And it's really interesting, I think, anyway. So if you've got all sorts of random ideas that relate to the card in some way, and you've thought them through, and you've got a context for the card, a context for the idea, because this 8 of Batons, if I can find it, okay. So maybe we've got flying or arrows flying through the air, and maybe we remember something when we were little, and we created a bow and arrow, and there was something happened there that may be connected with this particular card. And maybe one of these days, the 8 of Batons will come up and you find yourself automatically talking about your experience when you were little with a bow and arrow. And it will be relevant for the questioner. It may not be the meaning of the 8 of Batons, but it's something valuable and useful that you can tell the questioner. And it's because you made some notes. Okay, so the other thing is somebody whose name I think is Blessings of Love said, I need more colour. So here you go, Blessings of Love. There's colour. That's a picture of my painting my grandson did when he was maybe 4.5. So I don't think that's what Blessings of Love meant by more colour. But at the moment, the way I'm doing these videos is it's actually quite time consuming to do a video. But if I've got to then, let's say I'm talking about the Knight of Swords, and I have to put it in the timeline and have it fade in and fade out, and find the correct spot where I talk about this particular card and find an image of the card. It's all very time consuming, and it's easy, and I don't like to sit and face the camera and hold this card up to my face or have a picture in picture. It's just quicker and easier at this point to point to the card on the table. So that's why we've got a grey cloth and a brown table and the cards at the moment. So the other thing is, I wanted to mention, I mentioned Cheiro's numbers last time and probably the time before, and I'd like to mention it again, not because I think we should use Cheiro's numbers all the time, but sometimes if you're not sure what to do with a name or a word, maybe what you do is you use Cheiro's numbers. So here we have T-A-R-O-T. What's the tarot about? And you've got ideas, but maybe you're stuck at a certain point and you want something different or something new. So you do T-A-R-O-T is 41274, 415 7 14 18. Tarot ends up being the moon card. And maybe that, because the moon can represent treachery and deception on the part of other people, maybe that's why the tarot's got a bad reputation. Because people take advantage of other people. You know, you've been cursed, but give me $1,000 and I'll remove the curse, that kind of thing. But if you look at the card itself, we've got, maybe the tarot helps. We've got the crayfish in the water emerging onto the land. So you're going from one environment where you're naturally at home into a new environment, walking on land. And maybe that's what the tarot is good for, or why it was developed in the first place, to help people make a transition from one environment into a new one. because if you're in one space or one situation, you get used to it and you know what to do. But when you move to a new place or a new situation, maybe the old habits work, but maybe they don't. And maybe we need help to update our resume or update our habits or update our thinking. And that's what the tarot can give you as we see the crayfish emerge onto the land. The other thing is the crayfish is in water and is walking onto the land. Water is emotion and land is practicality. So maybe the tarot helps people to go from negative emotion, because people want to ask the tarot questions when they've got a problem. So maybe we go from negative emotion to practicality and stability, because the earth is stable, right? Whereas water isn't, because there's tides and there's movement and the wind blows across the top of the water and moves things around. Okay, so that's what I was wanting to talk about today. But maybe one last thing is to begin to put ideas into practice. Okay, so we're going to pick 3 cards. That's the past, that's the present, and that's the future. We don't know what the question is. We don't know who is asking. It doesn't really matter. But we're just looking to see. So the past, we've got the Lovers. So in the past, you were faced with a choice. You were at crossroads. What did you do? The 2 of Swords. You still can't make up your mind, because we've got 2 swords. Here we've got 2 people. And what does the future hold? The Hermit. You're going to be on your own, thinking things through. So, do you know what I mean? It's like you pick 3 cards and you do something simple like that and just see what you get out of it. And you begin to look at cards and what they might show, depending if it's something that's already happened because it's the past, if it's something that's going on at the moment, or if it's something that's going to be coming up in the future. And maybe you look at the similarity or the connections, if there are any, between the past and the future. So we go from having to make a decision to making a wise choice. So yes, you'll get over this period of indecision or this period where you can't make up your mind. And in the end, you'll make a wise decision, because it's the Hermit who represents ancient wisdom and wise old men and all the rest of it. And maybe you're going to be able to show other people, because some people look at the Hermit as being somebody who shows other people the way, because he's got a lantern held up. And he's lighting the way, not just for himself, but for other people. So anyway, that's kind of it for the day, for today. So today is Friday, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And quick shuffle at the end to put a full stop at the end of the sentence. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again. Okay? Bye-bye.